Welcome again to another episode of Crazy Canuck Trucking. I appreciate everybody that's following along, listening, watching, whichever way you're doing it. Please remember to share, send me comments to crazycanucktrucking@gmail.com. Put reviews on wherever you're listening or watching, on YouTube or on Apple or wherever you are. And appreciate you checking in. And we are in the third season of Crazy Canuck Trucking, and we are continuing ahead. And today we have an amazing guest who I have met in real life, and her name is Tara Schrock. Tara, welcome to the program. Tell us who you are.
Why, thank you for having me. I am a wife. I have 3 kids. I work in the ag industry, and we reside on a farm here in Western Illinois. My parents own and operate it. And thanks for having me. And we have met in real life and did a little surprise for Mr. Conrad to surprise an introduction to him as well. So that was a lot of fun.
It was pretty epic. To me, that was epic. He had the feeling something was up, but when he and I sat down first, and he was kind of looking around like he was expecting something, but he didn't know what to expect. I guess he was pretty surprised. That was fun.
He was actually trying to back out of it. Remember, he tried to cancel. And we were already down there, so we couldn't allow that to happen. So
we'll give a quick little shout out, Conrad Smith Ag, out of Illinois. What's his town name again? Smith Ag in Barrie, Illinois. It's fun meeting with him, and we'll say this: he really loves your singing. He pretends he doesn't. So we got a little sidetracked here, but so you're in West Central Illinois.
I'm on the western side. I'm right on the Mississippi River.
Right on the Mississippi. And you grew up on a farm?
Yes. Yep. My parents actively own and operate it, and we bought a place that kind of connects to one of our farm about 12 years ago or so. Gosh, time, what happens to it? I don't know, but it goes by fast.
Yeah. So when you were growing up, were there plans, was there even discussion about you staying on the farm and working the farm, or what was your childhood like?
Childhood was excellent. We all worked on the farm. It was my only job that I had all the way through college. But no, believe it or not, 3 out of 4 of us went on and got computer science degrees or information technology degrees. So we always went into the tech field at first, and I ended up in sales. I don't know.
Well, I imagine you do it quite well, because I've always seen you selling yourself quite well, and you're very bubbly, you're very personable. So have you always been that way?
Yeah, I've probably always been somewhat that way, but it wasn't until way back in 2011, I lost a very dear friend of mine to brain cancer, and she was the happy-go-lucky one between the 2 of us. She actually made me feel like a stick in the mud sometimes. She was just very bright and like, don't sweat the small stuff, and tomorrow's going to be better. And so that was kind of what adopted my 3-2-1 I love life motto. So I just decided life's too short to ever worry about that stuff, so I don't. And so she kind of helped push me over there after she passed away.
So that was one thing that really caught my attention first. That and the boss lady. And so I looked at your profile on Twitter, is where I first met up with you. And I was like, oh, 3-2-1 I love life. And the boss lady. And I was like, this is interesting. So I started following you. And so tell us about the origins of 3-2-1 I love life.
Yeah, so it's actually kind of in stressful times, I guess, when the family's falling apart and we're at our being ripped at the seams and busy and the kids are fighting, and I would stand in the kitchen while cooking and yell 3, 2, 1. And if I did it, everybody was mandated to yell I love life. It was a reset. So it quickly became our family motto. And believe it or not, it's funny because now the kids do it back at me. So if I'm yelling at them, they yell 3, 2, 1 at me. So it has to get me off of my soapbox of telling them to pick up their room or something like that. So
Nice. It's always funny when the kids pay back at us, right?
it is.
Well, we don't think it's funny at the time, but they didn't think it was funny in the first place, right? I'm sure.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, well, I laugh too with the GPS apps. So I have a teenage daughter and downloaded Life 360 a long time ago. And I always forget to check it because she's typically always here. Or I know where she's at a sporting event or something, but she checks up on me. And if I go someplace, including to the doctor's office, she's like, "What are you doing at the doctor's office?" Like, how is this reversing around on me? This is a parent's act. Like,
Yeah, yeah. She's a
they have a
sweetheart.
they have a way of reversing it around. So
She's a sweetheart. I've watched your posts about her,
yeah,
and all of your kids are just amazing. And I think that has some reflection on you and your husband as parents. Um, it's it's not it's not easy raising kids these days, but it's really very, very special. Even in turbulent times, you know, you have your kids and they can end up being so amazing when you have the right attitude.
it is, and a lot of it is checking in on their attitude. I mean, just even in our very small school district, we have had a few kids take their own lives, and you take a step back as a parent and like, what can you do to help them out? We are a very, very, very communicative family. I tell all of my kids, if you're upset about something, tell me right then. I don't care. Like, I don't care what it is. I don't want you harboring it. I don't want you letting it build up. So we are very much, and my kids are all like that too. If I'm mad, I'm mad. If I'm happy, I'm happy. If I'm sad, I'm sad. Like, you can't hide your feelings, but you can talk about them, and you can express that you're in a spot and need a little somebody to talk to, or something to keep your mind off of something. All three of my kids, believe it or not, are excellent at it. Sometimes so excellent that they're not scared to check that box and tell me that they don't see things my way at all. So but we are very, very, very open, and I think that's really important in kids these days. I mean, I remember how hard it was being a kid back in the day before technology. And now with all the technology, it scares me because there's never a break. It's constant. And don't get me wrong, I love technology. I love social media. Um, but I think in those younger years and teenage years, it's really hard to navigate because they don't get that break. It's just nonstop. If something happened at school, everybody knows about it because it's posted and it's blasted. And I didn't have those stresses when I was a kid. Gosh, if you were in a fight with somebody at school, it kind of stopped at the bus stop, right? And then you got to go home and eat with your family. And I mean, it was just something you dealt with at different times. And now it's just nonstop if they're going through that. So it is scary, but I do, like I say, I beg for my kids to talk, even if it's not me. I've asked my sister to step in before. My parents, like, I just somebody reach out to somebody and talk. So
Where did you learn that? How did, because I don't think that comes naturally to most people.
yeah, so my parents, we grew up, we had to eat pretty much all 3 squares a day around the kitchen table, and everything was talked about.
Hmm.
And we had a big family thing. My dad's always like, what we discuss here stays right here. We had a very big family trust and mutual respect for each other. And I thought that it was always good because sometimes I did want to just throw it out there. I didn't like somebody at school. I remember specifically, and I remember the event, and after I talked to him about it, I felt better, even though there was nothing to do about it. It was just out there. And I felt like I had somebody in my corner per se, or just to listen to me. So, yeah, and it's really funny because my husband and I are quite opposite. He is much more of probably an introvert. He's come out of his shell a lot in throughout our marriage, but he comes from a pretty quiet family. And then we have my very loud family. And like I said, we are just, if you feel it, you say it. And we've raised our kids like that. And I think it's helped them. They're very positive, outgoing, funny kids. They all have their individual personalities, but they're, like I said, they're not scared to tell somebody if they're upset about something, or they're not scared to tell you that they've had a great day. When I started traveling, I used to play a game with them because I traveled quite a bit, and so I would have to call home to talk to them. I played a game called High Low, where they would have to tell me what their high of their day was and what their low of their day was. So I still continued it even sitting in hotel rooms. Like, they had to tell me their positives and their negatives, and we all have them. And some days are better than others. So
Yeah, that's awesome. That's so, in my opinion, that's very critical to keep those lines of communication open. I remember talking with somebody one time some years ago, and they were not ones to allow their children to express themselves
mm,
until later in life. And the last couple of kids were given that opportunity, and they were sometimes very distraught, let's say, over what came out of their kid's mouth. And I said, yeah, but it's better to have that being said to your face
yes.
than to be harboring it inside. And you see those kids today, they've had an easier time adjusting to
Mm-hmm.
things and been much more open than the older kids.
Mm-hmm.
It's made a big difference.
Yeah. Well, like I say, I can't imagine what it would be like growing up today, with everything around them. They have a lot more stresses, I think, than I did. I mean, I realize that everybody's stresses are different, but just the nonstop noise around them, like I say, I didn't have. Mine stopped at the bus stop. You might call a friend with your, wall phone when you got home, but no
Yeah.
social media. It just wasn't like that. And so it scares me a lot. We start these kids just so young, and that's what they grow up with, and that's all they know. And it's frightening. I actually take my kids off of cell phones and technology in general. So especially in the summer months, they're not allowed. We don't even, their phones aren't even charged. They're in a secret spot. They can't have them. I have removed even from my teenager for weeks at a time. I can tell when she has needed a break, and I'm like, you're done with the phone for a bit. So it is, people always ask me, they're like, so you just take your kid's phone? And I'm like, I don't know what happened in this world, but I own that phone. So it's my phone.
Yeah.
They're just using it. But I do like the break, and they welcome it. My kids, actually, they're at the farm today, but they've been scooping bins, and they're outside kids, and that's where they spend their summers. So
Your kids are hard working.
they are.
You're
I love it because they're finally paying off. Like, I don't have to get grain bin anymore. Like,
yeah. Otherwise, it'd still be you, no matter what your age. Dad would be calling up and saying, "Hey, need to shovel a grain bin." Wait a minute, Dad. I got a couple of kids I can send you now.
yep. So all three of them are on the payroll on the farm. So
Yeah, nice, nice. I your son, one of the first things he ever said to me was, "My mom is crazy," and I thought that was such a compliment, and so special. That's very, very special. He's such a
and
cool kid.
if I can't tell you what they must think when they come through the door and I've got the radio blaring and I'm having a singing and dancing party in the kitchen trying to prepare a meal. I'm just glad that sometimes they don't bring friends home that have to see that side of me, because I do get crazy. So
Well, there's nothing wrong with that. We kind of embrace the crazy here.
life's too short not to be, right? So
3, 2, 1.
That's right.
That's good. What do you, going back to a serious note, how do you approach your kids, or what do you talk to your kids about when someone they know has taken their own life?
Yeah, it's tough. I actually didn't do it verbally with my daughter on one of them. I wrote her a letter because I couldn't find the words. I think that it's unfortunate at those such young ages. Your brain's not even done developing yet, so you don't know how to handle a lot of those emotions anyway until you're on into your 20s. And so I ended up writing her a very long letter on the last one and just, kind of reinforce the fact that if you need to talk to someone, even if it's not me, I've actually offered, I mean, we can, get a true therapist, a counselor to talk to. The school has great outreach programs, relatives, friends, but it's tough. I mean, you want to say it's not going to happen to my child, but I mean, the parents that it did happen to were saying that, 24 hours before too. And then it happened. So you just don't know. And I am that's why I think talking is a big thing. Cause I do think if you know your kids and you know them well, and you know their communicative style, the way that they behave, the way they take care of themselves. So I do think that you can kind of pinpoint some signs if you're really in check with that. But my oldest daughter, I mean, she's kind of naturally the quietest one of the group. So, then if she's too quiet, am I poking her too much? Like, hey, is everything okay? It's hard. But the last one I actually didn't even have a verbal conversation with her till after she read the letter. But it was a very heartfelt, like, I want you to talk to someone if you're having these feelings. But it's scary. And I think it just keeps increasing, that rate does. And like I say, and these young kids, they need to understand their own development. Your brain's not developed. Your emotions, you sometimes don't know how to deal with those emotions. It's a lot for a kid these days. But I also think as parents, we have to get better at, back to the old school days. We have to be okay with teaching our kids that it's okay to fail. I don't know where we kind of lost that along the way. I laugh because I always grew up with a dad who taught softball, but we didn't get participation awards, right? It was first, second, and third. And now it's like we get in these mindsets. So my kids are in Little League, but everybody is a winner some part. And I'm like, no, it's okay to teach your kids to lose. It's
Yeah,
okay. You played a hard game, you played your heart and soul out, but you lost. It's okay though. Like
yeah.
we have to get the kids, like, it's okay. Life's not perfect. You're gonna crash and you're gonna burn, and you have to be able to process that too and be okay.
And don't be afraid to take away their technology like you
Right.
have done,
Correct.
because as you were saying, with all the information coming at you all the time, you're getting bombarded with far too much sometimes,
Far too much.
and we know that as adults.
Yep.
We know that because we have times where we back off social media or back off things because it's too hard to keep handling.
Absolutely.
You need to get out, you need to feel the ground,
Yes.
you need to be grounded, you need to do things that are away from any kind of technology.
Yes. So I have always been out in, you know, outer space when it comes to a lot of current events, even. So I shut the news off years ago. It just gets to be too much for me. I know my limits and I know what drags me down. And I like my head in the clouds. So if something starts dragging me down, I shut it off. So I quit watching the news years ago. I felt like it was very biased, and I understand it's probably not. I mean, it would be nice to keep up with some of the current events, but I don't for the most part. And then during the pandemic, I started turning it on because I thought the world was coming to an end. Okay, right along with everybody else, I'm sure. And my mindset just like took a plunge, right? Like horrible. Like
Yeah.
it was every day I felt I didn't feel like myself. I wasn't happy. I thought we were all going to die. And then I started laughing. And I told my husband, I'm like, it's the news. I'm like, I'm shutting it off. Because when that stuff is just nonstop at you and that's all you're hearing, and it's very similar to what the kids do with all of that around them. And it does. Like, I know when my mind takes the plunge, and that's what they have to deal with day in and day out.
Yeah. Well, that's the reason I started this podcast, was because at the beginning of the pandemic, I just I couldn't handle it anymore. I I shut the news off April 2020,
Mhm.
and I rarely turn it on. My wife will watch news sometimes at home, and I'm like, I'll leave the room, or I do watch some stuff, less right now, but when I was running long haul, then I'd have to know some stuff because I'm going in different areas. I need to know
Yeah.
what the regulations are. I need to know certain things, and so I can absorb a lot of information fairly quickly on the internet. But lately, the last month and a half, I'm not on the highway anymore. I'm just working locally,
Mhm.
and I don't pay near as much attention. I'm kind of in my own world, and it's been a blast.
Uh-huh.
I haven't been promoting my podcast as much or doing stuff like that either, which I maybe should do more, but it's been it's been very nice to be unplugged for a little while. And
Everybody needs that break. It's mentally exhausting and draining. And so, and if you think about it, if we as adults struggle at times with it, think about what an underdeveloped child's brain is doing that can't process that, right?
yeah.
They really don't know what to do with it. So, yeah, it is. It's scary, but don't be scared to take electronics. They'll only like despise you for like the first 48 hours, and then it's okay, and they start liking you again. So
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm a pro at it.
Yeah. That was that brings to mind. I always get it whenever I think of electronics. I think of Conrad's co-host Michelle, and how she took all her kids' phones away, and they knew it was coming, so they set their alarms for different times of the night. And little buggers had the alarms going off all night long. And I thought that was just hilarious. It gets some people really twisted up in their knickers, like, but it was hilarious,
I
and
remember. I remember that. Yes.
yeah, she still gets hate over that sometimes, it's like, give it a rest, guys, but that's the problem as parents today. You get, oh, you can't take their phone away. Oh, you can't take that. That's a right. No, that's not a right. You know, I
No.
got a real kick out of my nephew when he was a teenager, and my sister took his phone away, and he was ranting on social media about how horrible that was, and it's dangerous weather out here in the wintertime in the wilds of Canada, frozen north, and it's like that must be the worst mom in the world, and it's like, hey, buddy, your mom never grew up with any of this stuff,
Uh huh.
you know,
Yes,
and you just no. It's not a right.
it is not, and it's actually the same. My son, he's soon Jackson is soon to be 12, and he would love nothing more than a gaming system of some sort. Actually, and I know I've mentioned it before, so he's struggles with being dyslexic, and but he's been diagnosed and he's in a special program for that. So he's finally making progress on his reading. Um, but he would love nothing more, and he in his little brain he would become a junkie because that's what he's an electronics kid. And nothing the house would burn down around him. Literally, if he was into something, that's where his concentration goes, and he's all in. And so I laughed because I dusted off the Wii, and I love Wii bowling. So I'm like, yes, I'm like, we can. I'm like, I had this years ago, and then I had it put away, and I'm like, I love Mario Brothers, and he didn't find any humor in that because I think he's really wanting like an Xbox or something. So I told him when he was 18, he could buy himself his own Xbox because it won't be under my roof. So
Jackson is so cool. And I love that he has his own style and he's not afraid to
He does.
do that.
He does. He walks around typically, well, when I can get him to put a shirt on. Now that he's gotten older, he is putting a t-shirt on a bit more at least. But blue jeans, cowboy boots, just a plain white Hanes t-shirt and a cowboy hat, and he rocks the mullet. So yes, and it doesn't matter where we're going or what we're doing. I will make him throw on a dress shirt for family pictures occasionally, but otherwise, he's a very unique kid. He's very old school. He's my old soul. He doesn't well aside from wanting electronics, but he's the kid that's out helping grandpa, getting all the history artifacts of the farm. He goes through junk piles and his trinket drawer. I finally limited him to a drawer in the kid room because he'll just keep bringing junk home. Um, Pocket watches and all this stuff. He's a very unique old soul.
So I know where I can get rid of some of my stuff then.
Well,
That's probably not helping.
I keep telling my dad, I'm like, whatever junk he collects today, you keep it at your place. Stop sending it to mine.
I saw a picture on the internet the other day of a pile of trash at the end of a driveway. It's a huge, huge pile of trash, and it's yeah, we cleaned out the junk drawer today.
Yes.
That's the way it seems sometimes, right?
Yep. I have too many junk drawers in this house. I don't even know what to do with them all.
Yeah. Talk to us briefly about your dad. He's had some health challenges, and trying to do
Yeah,
that during the pandemic time has not been fun.
it has not, but actually, it's one of my only positives out of COVID. Is it actually kind of probably saved his life. So he started off early on needing open heart surgery though in both carotid arteries. That happened right at the beginning of the pandemic, so we pushed off those surgeries for a bit. Finally got those taken care of, and he was back on the mend. He was back driving a tractor before long, and life was great. And then he started a spell of kind of talking, I'll say nonsense. Wasn't really making sense. Mom had called, and then she called my brother, and they took him up. And this is right in the heat of the pandemic. His turns out his sodium levels were low, and he ended up with kidney cancer, but stage 1, and they caught it. And it was all because he had COVID, and it had attacked his kidney, and actually, which is what kind of made it be found in the first place, I'll say. So, ended up saving his life. It was a quick surgery, and he's back on the mend again and going wild. But aside from that, I don't have many positives that come out of somebody getting COVID. But
Yeah,
in turn it saved his life. So
yeah. Well, that's good. It's good.
yeah,
I There's been a lot of prayers going up for your dad.
yeah, it was touch and go for a bit. So he kept us on our toes. He evidently didn't want us to be too relaxed for a few months. So
Yeah, yeah. You have a niece battling cancer right now as well, right?
yes, she has had clear scans now for the past 3 or 6 months.
Wow.
She actually was just up here for a visit from South Carolina, and yeah, had a very rare cancer, only 13% survival rate. They didn't give her great hope, but it just takes 1%, right? That's all it takes. So you could be
Yeah,
part of that. So yeah, fought hard. She's a trooper, and they're they're smooth sailing right now. I don't think you're truly considered. I think the 2 year mark will be the next big milestone, and then the 5 year mark is truly the hopefully game changer. So, yes,
yeah. We'll keep them in our prayers and
yeah,
all the families.
those little kids. I don't know how they do it, but they are stronger than you ever think possible.
They don't know that a lot of times little kids don't know that they should fail, that they could fail. They just think, "Oh, I'm just going to get better.
Yep,
I'm just going to do this."
yep,
As adults, we have too much reasoning sometimes. We
yep,
throw up all the obstacles in our path. Little kids don't look at the obstacles. They're just like, "Oh, okay, I got to do this." Okay. It's
yep.
very cool. as adults, we need to pay more attention to that sometimes.
And we do. They can teach us a few things.
Yeah. So I like to close off with I didn't give you any warning about this. I forgot. Um, we kind of set this up last minute, but a favorite road trip of some kind. You've been on lots of road trips. What is an epic road trip that you've been on sometime for whatever reason? Something that when you're telling stories, that's one of the first things that comes to mind for you.
Actually, it was when I was in my teenage years. We did I'll say, Clark Griswold 2-week vacation, all through the Badlands, hiked Pikes Peak, stayed in campgrounds along the way. But the reason it's my favorite is because I go back and I look at old family pictures, and we fit the true 80s family, big, video camera and stuff like that. So I always tell my kids that I'm bummed that I wasn't able to like embarrass them on such a road trip yet, but it's never too late. So
They're still young enough. You can get it in there. Keep the fear going in them, right? You know.
actually, the Griswold whole collection is a family favorite of ours. So we enjoy watching it a lot. So they
Yeah.
know what I mean when I say I want to embarrass them like that. So
I love the connection you have with your kids. I've told you that many times over the years that we've known each other. The connection you have with your children is very special. And I think it all goes back to that communication that you need to talk about everything with your kids. Because if you don't know what's going on, how do you know how to help them?
yeah, absolutely.
So I really appreciate you coming on with me, Tara, taking time out of your busy day.
Yeah.
And I really love following along. I love hearing from Jackson, and he's such a cool kid.
He'll be
So,
back on his laptop in September, so you'll
well,
probably
I'll I'll get back to the snail mail thing, and I need to type it up because I he won't be able to read my handwriting. So
Well, I laugh because Finley sends letters in the mail to Pam Smith, another really good friend of mine that I met through Twitter, and I always laugh and tell Pam, "Good luck if you can like phonetically like sound out." So it's always fun watching, second grader write out their phonetically spelled words. I like
yeah,
it. So she has to
yeah.
jump through hoops to read some of those letters, I'm sure.
But those are wonderful letters. Excellent, excellent things to get from a little kid.
Yes,
That's for
they're fun.
sure.
Yes.
Yeah. So I want to remind everybody again, like and share, put reviews on wherever you're watching or listening, and follow Tara on wherever social media is. You can probably find her. Tara Schrock, uh, 321 I Love Life lady, and she's a cool lady in person. On the internet, she is who she is, no matter what. What you see on social media is what you see in real life. Well, maybe a little less crazy on social media, right?
I think so.
So, thank you very much for coming on, Tara.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. You have a great day.
You too.